So what the heck is intuitive eating? If you have a problem trusting your body or want to know more about intuitive eating, this is for you. So I'm Bree, the registered nurse and certified health coach of hippydippymom.com, and also the host of the Happy Healthy Mom podcast. I'm super excited. I have an awesome guest with me today. It's Kristen Dovniak, close enough?
Yep.
Who is a holistic health coach, certified culinary nutritionist, certified intuitive eating counselor, and trained chef. She works with women worldwide to help them simplify nutrition and tune into their intuition to heal their relationship with food and their body and live happy, healthy, whole lives. She is the host of the Healthy Balanced Mama podcast, creator of several online programs, including Healthy Mama Meal Prep and the Super Mama Society. Her online group coaching membership program, rooted in intuitive eating principles, helps empower moms to live healthier lives beyond dieting. And then you also have an upcoming uncomplicated eating course coming up. She lives on an island off the coast of New England. That's super awesome. With her sailor husband and her two sweet and spunky sous chefs, Sage and Ren. And you can usually find her in the kitchen. So welcome so much. Thank you for being here. And then I just want to share too that we'll link to all your things in the show notes and where all the links go. But we can also find you on Instagram and your website at Healthy Mama Kris, Kris. But thanks so much for being here. I'm so looking forward to sharing this information with my listeners. I think it's just really valuable information. Why don't you start by just sharing a little bit about your story and, what got you to the point where you are today?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Bree. I am so honored to be on and just to be sharing with you. I mean, as you shared in my bio, I've done a lot of things in my life, but I think I am the absolute most passionate about really helping women really uncomplicate eating and feel less stressed about food and create a healthier relationship with food and their bodies. And this sort of stems from, or not sort of, definitely stems from my story. So I grew up just kind of your average kid eating the standard American diet. I'm really thankful that my parents introduced me to all different types of foods, lots of different flavors. I started learning how to cook when I was in high school and decided, as many teenagers do, I wanted to become a vegetarian. So I actually started kind of getting a little bit of a passion for food around this time and kind of teaching myself how to cook. But somewhere along the way, somewhere in high school, my relationship with food started becoming a lot less fun and a lot more complicated. I struggled with an eating disorder for about 4 years in high school and early college. And what's interesting is I was going to school for nutrition at the time, and I thought that what I was doing was just trying to become the healthiest version of myself. So I was restricting my food as much as I possibly could, eating as little as possible, and working out obsessively because I thought that I was just trying to become healthy. And it wasn't until my best friend sat me down at Starbucks, and I'm holding like my black coffee with Splenda in it, which is so gross to me now. And she's like, if you don't get yourself help, I will. And I took her seriously for some reason that day, because I think I knew deep down that what I was doing wasn't creating health. I was severely underweight. I was having all of these digestive problems. I wasn't really spending any time going out with my friends. I mean, I was a college student, and all I was doing was studying, counting calories, and sleeping. And that wasn't the type of life that I wanted to live. So I went and I saw a dietitian, and I healed my body, and I got back to the place where I had, I was a healthy weight, and I started to eat more normally again. But ultimately, I never healed my relationship with food. So I went on, and I ended up after school, I ended up going to Toronto, moving up to Toronto. My husband's Canadian, and I needed an excuse to go up and follow a boy to another country. So I decided to go to culinary school because I had that passion for cooking and for food for so many years. So I went to culinary school with the goal of learning how to teach people how to live healthier lives and eat healthy through food. And it's still something that I'm really passionate about. I still teach cooking classes on occasion to this day because I do really love it and I love food. But I was still struggling a lot with my relationship with food during this time. My husband and, my then boyfriend, now husband, and I got engaged. And of course, I wanted to, slim down for the wedding. And I kind of, it kind of started this spiral of on again, off again dieting. And through this time, I was also getting a couple certifications in holistic health coaching and holistic nutrition. So I kind of went over onto the side of getting obsessive and almost orthorexic when it comes to, and for those of you who don't know what orthorexia is, it's kind of an over obsession with healthy living. Mm-hmm. So I once again trying to be healthy. My goals were trying to live a healthy life, but I was going to the extreme. And I just had my husband on my podcast last week, and we had talked about all these like juice cleanses I had him go on with me. And at the time I was also struggling with some pretty severe digestive issues. So all of this kind of got muddled up in trying to live this healthy life, but really obsessing over it. And all of this came kind of to a head after I gave birth to my first sweet little daughter, Sage. She's 6 now. And after I gave birth to her, as many moms do, I wanted to lose the baby weight. And so I went on yet another diet. And so the cycle that I had sort of had was that I would go on something, last for only so long, and then give it up and then eat all of the things, sort of like the restrict binge cycle, like a lot of women are in. I had this on again, off again relationship with healthy living. And at this time, I decided to jump into the fitness world. So rather than jumping in and kind of into this on again, off again thing, I kind of stayed on for a long time. For a couple of years, I got really, really obsessed with fitness. I ended up competing in a fitness competition and ended up doing really well in the fitness competition. But after the fitness competition, I ended up having this really crazy health crash that no one could really truly explain what was going on with me other than chronic fatigue. I had basically worked my body, or really exhausted my body, by restricting my food and over exercising to the point where I could like barely lift the weights that I had weeks prior. And I had a 2-year-old, and I couldn't be the mom that I wanted to be. And I was not showing up as the woman I wanted to. And it was a huge wake up call that this obsession that I had with trying to be quote unquote healthy or trying to be fit, I was going about it all the wrong way. And so during this time, actually, while I was going through this training for this fitness competition, I had started to hear about intuitive eating. I had listened to the Food Psych podcast with Kris Harrison, who is now the author of the book Anti-Diet, which is a fabulous read. And she's just great. Her podcast is amazing, but I wasn't really ready to take in that information. I was listening to it. I found it interesting, but it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? I'll do this later. And then when I had this huge health crash, I was like, okay, later is now. I cannot keep doing this to my body. I cannot be in this on again, off again relationship with healthy living. I need to really, truly find health and find my balance. And so I started digging into intuitive eating. And I read the intuitive eating book, which I'll share more about. And I actually worked with an intuitive eating counselor and slowly but surely started to find what I like to call my beautiful balance. This place where I'm really passionate about nutrition and nourishing my body and eating in a way that feels really good for me, but I don't do it in a way that's obsessive anymore. And I allow myself permission to eat all types of food, and I enjoy food again. The saddest part of my journey when I was in this crazy like fitness craze was I wouldn't even let myself enjoy foods. And I mean, I'm a former chef. I love food. I am a huge foodie. And I didn't believe that there was this middle ground where I could really, truly enjoy food and nourish myself and be healthy, but actually, eat the things that I love to eat. And so I also started shifting my business. For a long time, I worked as a personal chef and teaching cooking classes. And then I shifted to coaching women, basically doing the things that I was doing, restricting their food and over exercising. And eventually I shifted to coaching women through intuitive eating. I became an intuitive eating counselor and studied directly under Evelyn Tribole. And I've been teaching women how to find this space of balance for the last couple of years now. And like I said, I've never been more excited to share something with the world because it really is. I mean, if I found my balance, through all of that, I know that any woman can.
Yeah. Well, that's so great. I mean, I feel like what you went through just embodies what so many different women are experiencing or have experienced at some point in their life. And I love how too you thought that you were doing all the right things for yourself. You thought you were, living your healthiest life and doing all the healthy things for yourself. But that's what I hear a lot of the times too, is that a lot of women feel like they're doing that, and it does end up leading to something like an eating disorder, or yo-yo dieting and things like that. So that's why I feel like this topic is just so important. And too, I've talked about, like, as a registered nurse, I feel like just, as a society, we're taught to trust the experts, like you said, and not to trust ourselves anymore. And it's so important, not just for ourselves, but as moms for our kids. Like, we know our kids when they're little, especially, we know our kids better than anybody else. And so we really have to practice listening to that intuition and trusting our own skills and our own knowledge. I kind of, not funny that you mentioned orthorexia, but that was definitely the path that I started to go down when I started switching from the standard American diet and all the toxic products, to eating healthier and living healthier. I was like, no, like, we have to be 100% of the time, and we have to eat well all the time. Everything has to be organic. We can't go to restaurants, and if we go to families' houses or friends' houses, we have to take all our food with us. And if we go to hotels, like, I even have friends that take their own sheets to hotels because they don't want to use. Yeah. So I mean, but that too, that started to be very unhealthy for me, because I was stressing out and it was causing anxiety and almost like an OCD, type of behavior. So I like that you talked about, finding your balance. And I think it's really important, and I would really like for you to kind of break down what quote unquote intuitive eating is.
Yeah. So intuitive eating, as I define it, it's a non-diet nutrition framework with a focus on self-attunement. So tuning into our own bodies over outside rules and outside experts. And like we talked about before, we can take in that information from the experts and apply it and find what works. But the whole point is eating for self-care over self-control. So the original framework was created by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch 25 years ago now. So it has its 10 principles that focus on this concept of self-attunement over self-control. So it stood the test of time for 25 years. It's been verified by over 100 studies to improve health markers and ultimately create a healthier relationship with food and with our bodies, so that we are approaching food from this place of caring for ourselves rather than just trying to control everything we eat. Because just like in your experience, when we go to extremes, we end up swinging to the opposite extremes, or end up getting obsessive and unhealthy. So it really helps you find that middle ground with food where you are living in real, true balance.
So what if your body is, telling you to, like, eat all the chocolate?
Well, this is part of the intuitive eating process, right? It's learning to tune into what your body really needs. It's really ultimately learning to care for your body and find what actually feels good in your body. And that's where your intuition really comes in. Your intuition is really that connection between what your mind wants and what your body needs, and really aligning your food choices with the things that you value and allowing permission to eat all types of foods. Like, there's nothing wrong with chocolate, and it's taking the morality out of foods. So you're not good or bad if you eat the chocolate or don't eat the chocolate. Chocolate is neutral. Food is just food, but you make the choice based on how you want to feel that day, that moment. And sometimes you're gonna want to eat the chocolate, and sometimes you're like, no, I could probably use a real meal instead. And that's it. It is a process, right? It takes time to learn what feels good in our bodies and not be restrictive about that. So it's about removing those rules and removing the morality around food, and then approaching it with, okay, so what feels best in my body? body, and how am I going to care for my body with the choices that I make? Does that make sense?
That does. It really does. That's so good. I had a guest on a couple months ago who talked kind of about the same thing, like removing the like junk food or the good, bad, like those kinds of labels with food, because then we tend to label ourselves the same way.
Yeah.
And so just that's kind of something that's been in the back of my mind. And so I like that. I like how you described it. That makes it very clear and seem more like doable. So how do you work with someone, or how do you help someone who is either currently, like on the standard American diet, or people who feel like they have to count everything? Like, how do you help them start to switch over more to the intuitive eating?
Well, a lot of this really comes down to, and everyone is different. So I'll premise it with that. So everyone's journey is different. So when I work with somebody, the first thing we do is we just talk about their story. We talk about, like, just like I shared my history and struggles with food with you, we talk to them about their story. Where have they been? What do they feel like their biggest struggles are? Why do they feel like they have to count or track or measure in order to live healthy? And ultimately, oftentimes that comes down to them not feeling like they can trust their bodies, because we have been told over and over by society that we are not the experts of our own bodies. And yes, the science of nutrition is very important, and we want to apply. And the creators of intuitive eating were dietitians. They're both alive and both fabulous. they're dietitians. They care about nutrition, and those of us who practice intuitive eating, I think it's a big misconception that nutrition isn't a part of intuitive eating, but it absolutely is. But we come at it from a place of, we can take in that information and we can apply the information about nutrition, but we don't need to do it in a way that's controlling. We do it by trusting our bodies that we have these incredible innate cues that we were born with. We have the cues of hunger and fullness and satisfaction and food preferences. And all of these things can inform what feels good in our body, how much food feels good in our body. And really, food, it's interesting because most of us think, or a lot of us come from the mindset of having to eat a certain amount either at each meals or a certain amount each day. But our bodies change on a daily basis, and we forget that. We wake up in the morning and sometimes we are like excited and raring to go, and we are like ready for the day. And some mornings we wake up and we're really tired and we're sluggish and we didn't get a very good night's sleep. And we accept that. But sometimes we can't accept that the other cues that our body has also change on a daily basis, like our hunger and our fullness and the things that we are actually going to find satisfying and appealing that day. They change based on things like our sleep levels and our hormones and, and our activity levels, things like that. So what it comes down to is really, helping women. I work mostly with, I work like 100% with women. Nothing against men. Men can absolutely practice intuitive eating as well, but I know we're both mamas and, so I do refer to women. So nothing against the men, but that's who I work with. When I work with women, we come down to, so why do you feel like you can't trust your body? Why do you feel like you have to control your food in one way or the other? And where have you seen that you can trust your body? And we kind of dig deep and go, okay, we can trust our bodies to tell us when we're sleepy and when it's time to go to sleep. We can trust our bodies to tell us when we've got to pee. And we'd already trust our bodies in so many ways to give us these innate cues. So why aren't we trusting our bodies with food? So we kind of start there. And we start by learning how to trust that our body will tell us what we need. And it can be hard if we feel like maybe we can't trust our bodies to choose healthful foods. And we have to kind of develop the trust in our bodies before we start incorporating new types of foods. But incorporating new types of foods and trying out new things is part of the process of finding what feels good. But if we don't trust our bodies to tell us what feels good first, then nothing's gonna stick. We're just gonna start, adding in more and more rules or more foods without really noticing what feels good. When we learn to trust, our bodies have this incredible wisdom. It'll tell me how much to eat, what types of foods feel good. And when we can get to that point, then we can add in new foods and really truly find what feels good. I
Yeah.
felt like I went off on a tangent there. I hope
No,
that was that answered
no,
well.
that was perfect. And that actually, I wanted to talk about the body trust thing too, because you recently posted about that on your Instagram. And I just thought that was such a great post. So I'm glad that you covered that too. But I do feel like it's so, I don't know why. I mean, it's so hard for women to trust their bodies. And those are such good points. You know, we trust our bodies to tell us when we're tired or when we have to go to the bathroom, or I mean, just all these things. Like, we know our body tells us when we're going to start our period, you know, and we know that those things are going to happen. So those are really, really, really good points. And I think just a great reminder of this is just what our body does. I know that I did not trust my body at all, or even listen to my body for like the longest time. And so how I kind of broke that cycle for myself, because too, when I first started switching over my lifestyle, I didn't know people like you and I existed, you know, coaches to help me get through this stuff. So I was just trying to figure it out all on my own. So I just started journaling. It was really like a food journal. And so that helped me realize what basically was making me not feel good. And now too, kind of having that, that realization or that connection helps me with the food choices that I still make. You know, I do eat sweets or gluten or whatever from time to time, but it's really like, I know that doesn't make me feel the best. Do I really want to do that today? So, I mean, I think that really just getting back to that is just so important. It's also like freeing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of intuitive eating and trusting our body, is it's very freeing. Have you experienced that with your clients and yourself as well?
Oh yeah, totally. It's incredibly empowering to know your body and to be in tune with your body and accept your body as the best expert, and being able to make these decisions from this place of, I am serving my body the best way I can because I know my body and I know this feels good in my body and I know this might not, and I can make the choice either way, but that's my choice. No one else is telling me what to do. I'm relying on my body to tell me. But you're right that it does take time to learn the process of tuning into your body, and food journaling can be a really good resource. And really just awareness of our bodies and awareness of how our body responds to food is powerful. Many of us go about our days really just disconnected with our bodies. So we have to recreate that connection with our bodies, which is possible for everyone, no matter what your history with food or what life situation you're in. And it can be hard with moms. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate talking to moms, because I'm like, I know it feels like you cannot pay attention to anything because you have to keep tiny humans alive. But you can pay attention to your body.
Yeah.
She'll tell you what you need. But yeah, it really is. It starts with that awareness and creating that connection with your body. And it's so, so empowering.
Totally. Oh yeah. I don't even want to go back to how it used to be, because I do love having, just like you said, that very empowering feeling. So in talking about moms, how do we do this with our kids, where we teach them, you know, from the get-go to trust their bodies and just to always follow that intuition with themselves?
Yeah. Oh, I love talking about kids because, I mean, ultimately we can only do so much as parents. And I think the best thing that we can do for our kids is to heal our own relationship with food. And then we can move forward and be that example for our kids. My dream is that my kids, and you know, I often post on Instagram stories just pictures of my kids in the kitchen with me. My 6-year-old has been anti-Instagram lately, so you'll see a lot more of my 2-year-old. She's, you know, 6 going on 16 at this point. But, I'll have my 2-year-old up on the counter with me, throwing greens in my smoothie and just being there. And my 6-year-old loves to cook dinner with me. And she's the guacamole maker in our house. Like she won't even let me make guacamole anymore because it is her. It is her job. And I want them in the kitchen with me and seeing food as a joyful experience, because food is nourishment and fuel to our bodies, but it's also pleasure and joy and connection. And I want to show them that food is all of those things. And because I've gone through this journey myself, I know that I can pass that on to them. And just show them that, food is neutral. And our kids know that, I follow a lot of Ellen Satter's work, and she talks about the division of responsibility, where the parents provide the foods and you let the child decide how much they're going to eat, if they're going to eat it. And we follow that as a family. But our kids know that there are some foods we call fuel foods and some foods that are fun foods, and that we don't eat chocolate at 9 a.m. just because that's a fun food and it's just probably not going to feel good in our bodies. And that's just something that we don't do, but we do chocolate because, it's a part of life, and it's something that's enjoyable, and no foods are off limits. So even though we do, I will limit something like a chocolate at 9 a.m. just because I don't want the kids going crazy and before school or whatever time of the day it is. Right? But we don't restrict any foods in our house, other than my 6-year-old has a food sensitivity. And so we don't have corn in our house. But other than that, we don't restrict foods, and we just make it a joyful experience, and we don't make it a big deal. I let my kids make their own choices as much as possible when it comes to meals. We serve meals family style as much as possible. And I don't sweat it if they don't eat the broccoli, because there are days where my kids will eat an entire tray of roasted broccoli on their own. And my husband and I get like one piece because we eat everything off of our plate. And we're like, all right, I guess we're not having broccoli tonight. And then there are some times where my kids totally refuse the broccoli or refuse the meal. And we just don't make it a big deal, because kids are born, or we were all born intuitive eaters. And when we allow them, when we set the example and we allow them to navigate it on their own and make their own choices and, give them that empowerment, right? Then I believe that they will grow up with at least a healthier relationship with food. And I know that, my parents did the absolute best they could, and they were fabulous parents. They are fabulous parents. And they introduced me, like I said, to a lot of different types of foods. But one of the things that I know stuck with me as a child, and I've talked to my mom about this, she knows I love her and I forgive her, was kind of being forced to finish our plates. And it's just, this is a lot of people come from that background, right? Where they were told that they had to finish their plates, especially, those of us who have parents or, grandparents who come from the Depression era when food was scarce. And there is that mindset around food, and we never require our kids to finish their plate. And we use language that is intuitive, like, my tummy's full. They'll just tell me that my tummy's full. And they'll ask for things like, are we serving dessert tonight? Because sometimes we'll have dessert randomly, because I think it's fun sometimes on like a Wednesday night to just be like, yeah, we're going to have dessert tonight. And they're like, what? We don't often have dessert during the week, but it neutralizes it and makes it not a big deal. It's just a fun thing, and it's just a fun part of life. It's not like, oh, you have to finish your dinner to have dessert, or you have to eat all of your dinners Monday through Thursday, and then we have dessert on Friday. So we really we neutralize things. We allow them to make their own choices for their own body. And I really try to set that example. And I am by no means perfect. And I have no idea how my kids are going to grow up in their relationship with food. But I think as moms, we can just do the best, starting with our relationship with food ourselves, and then just, no matter where your kids are now, whether they're, a couple months old or they're already going off to college, I think you can always add new principles and start instilling these practices in your life and at your family meals.
Yeah, I think that is so important to start with yourself, because even when we think that they're not watching us or they're not listening to us, they are. It's amazing. I often, say my daughter has like supersonic hearing because we'll just be whispering and she'll be like, oh yeah, I already know about blah, blah, blah. And we're like, how did you hear us? We were whispering. But yeah, they definitely, I mean, we are their number one examples for sure.
Mhm.
So how do you incorporate, teaching your kids about those fuel foods, which by the way, I really like those labels, the fuel foods and the fun foods. How do you teach them kind of the difference between those without making it into like a big deal,
Yeah. No, it's funny that you ask that because that is something that just it's almost come natural from the start just because I mean I think my daughter was about 2 when my oldest daughter was 2 when I was kind of healing my own relationship with food. And we've always sort of practiced that much of the food that we serve at home are fuel foods. It's our family values that we don't eat a ton of processed foods at home just because that's what feels good in our bodies. And because my husband and daughter have a sensitivity to corn, and like 99% of packaged foods have corn in them. So that's just kind of inherent in that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting and unique, and I think a gift, and she's only 6 and she finds it hard, and it's something that she's going to have to navigate, but that her food sensitivity comes with a lot of like brain fog and lack of concentration and things that she can recognize now as a kindergartner.
Wow.
These type of foods don't feel good in her body. So when we're out of the house, it's pretty much fair game. Now, if there's something that is like very, like we know that that is like basically straight corn syrup, she doesn't have an anaphylactic reaction. So we typically, that's the only thing we'd be like, yeah, you can't have this.
Yeah.
Other
Yeah.
than that, we don't have any major restrictions. Sometimes she'll eat something with corn in it outside of the house and she recognizes, and my husband helps her recognize because he has the same sensitivity. How does this feel in your body? It doesn't feel very good, does it? It makes my tummy hurt. It makes my brain feel funny. And so we've kind of helped her recognize those kind of signals in her body. And so I mean, there's kind of that inherent with her food sensitivity, which I do believe is a gift. And I know as a young child, it doesn't feel like that, but
Yeah.
I think hopefully she'll see it like that one day,
Mm-hmm.
that she has just learning how to tune into her body so inherently just through this
Yeah.
sensitivity. But so we've always kind of talked about, these are the foods that, we believe feel good in our bodies. And these are the type of foods that we're going to serve at home. And when we're outside the home, we eat other types of foods, and we eat out, a couple times a month, sometimes more than that. And we don't sweat it. We let the kids order whatever they want to order. It's not a big deal. If they want chicken nuggets or pizza or mac and cheese, thankfully, that's her only food sensitivity is corn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But at home, sometimes we eat those foods at home too. Sometimes they have mac and cheese, and I'll make my own, homemade chicken nuggets with like cassava flour, and they're super good. And I love them too. And I kind of feel like a kid again when you're eating them. But we choose to eat foods with, more real food ingredients at home. And our kids know that. And they know that this is just kind of the center of what we eat. And then when we're outside the home, we eat other types of foods. And sometimes we do have dessert type foods at home, like ice cream. But if they ask me for ice cream at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday for breakfast, and no, we're not serving that right now. We're going to eat a fuel food instead. And it's not like, oh, these foods are bad and these foods are good. It's just education. And it's just kind of a part of our lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. We're similar too in our home. My daughter doesn't really have any sensitivities, but I can tell, like, for example, if she were to have some kind of, treat with like refined sugar or something in it, today, I know tomorrow she's going to be cranky. My daughter's 8, and it's funny, I always say she's 8 going on 18 as well. But so I'll just point that out to her. Like, you're really cranky today. I wonder if this could have something to do with what you ate yesterday, or, I'll just try to kind of ask it in like a question form to help her just be curious about it and just think more about it. And so she can start to just recognize what her own body is telling her. And one difference I see between myself and her, myself when I was a kid, is if I had like a sweet treat, I would just eat all of it. And sometimes I had like multiple sweet treats during
Mhm.
one day even. And with her, she can, like, if we do go out for ice cream, she can eat like half of it and go, I don't want any more. And I'm just like, how do you do that? I would not have been able to do that as a child. So it's just something that those little things make me proud of her too, because that tells me that she is already listening to her body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And two, I like, what you said about, because I feel like so many people are still in that space where they're telling their kids, no, you have to finish everything on your plate, or take 3 more bites, or if you want this cookie, then you have to eat all the broccoli first, or, those kinds of things. And that, you know, I see it taking away from the kids' own ability to be able, or they start to doubt what their body is telling them,
Mhm.
like I feel full, but now I have to keep eating more.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I don't want that, but mom or dad says I have to have that. So I do think that that is the opposite, of what you said, that intuitive eating is so empowering, and we're just kind of taking that away without really meaning to or knowing we're doing it, of course, but we're kind of taking that away from our kids when we do things like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of sad. But so another thing I wanted to talk about is, what does it mean to you, or what does it mean in respects to intuitive eating, to just embrace and like respect our bodies?
Yeah. Oh man, we could probably talk for so long on this.
I know.
I mean, one of the principles of intuitive eating is about respecting our body. It's about body respect. And body respect comes down to a lot of things. And I think first and foremost, embracing our bodies comes with accepting our bodies. So it's accepting our bodies how they are. And I say this with so much compassion for the majority of the world I know does not look like the picture that society tells us we are supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And so many of us, and I know myself included for a really long time, feel like inherently there's something wrong with our bodies because we don't look like what society, whatever, generation we're in,
Mhm.
what society tells us that we're supposed to look like. Like, I am 5 feet tall. I am, no matter what I do, no matter what I eat, or no matter how I work out, I will never look like Giselle. It's just not going to happen. So I've had to, and I mean, I don't have those type of goals anymore, but I
Yeah.
did for a long time. And I spent so many years, like I said, striving to really try and fit into a mold that wasn't mine. And it caused so much strife, and it prevented me from living a real full life because I was so obsessed with trying to change my body and turn it into something that it just wasn't. So when we start, adding in practices that make us feel good and choosing self-care over self-control, our bodies will find a place that feels really good to them and fits well to them. And and a size that is, that's not going to be, constantly going up and down, which so many women experience this, weight cycling, which research has
Mhm.
actually shown to be more unhealthy than being overweight,
Yeah.
that is like up and down weight cycling. So accepting our bodies and accepting that it's not up to us to decide the size of our bodies. It's up to us to take care of our bodies, and our bodies will align with that. They'll
Mhm.
align with the way that we take care of our bodies and the way that we honor our
Mhm.
bodies. So accepting that our bodies are all different, like we were all designed differently. Go to any major city and look around. We are all designed differently. Our bodies are all different, just like we all have different, hair color and hairstyle and eye color and shoe size.
Mhm.
We can't, and something that, and this is not a direct quote, but something they say in the intuitive eating book is like, you can't expect a woman who has a size 8 foot to fit into a size 6 shoe. So why are we trying to force our bodies into something that isn't natural for them? So it
Yeah.
really starts with accepting that our bodies are going to fight to be what our bodies are meant to be. Our job is simply to honor them and do the best we can to take care of them without obsessing over it, which is, like I've been talking about, it's a really fine line and it's a really
Mhm.
hard dance, but it is something that you can absolutely learn. But then respecting our bodies is about making those choices of self-care and caring for our bodies. So once we get rid of the rules and allow ourselves to really make peace with food, we can start to find what feels good in our body in terms of food, in terms of movement, in terms of other lifestyle factors, the things that we need as individuals, because we are all unique individuals and we all have different needs to care for our bodies and to feel good on a daily basis. But I think we have to have that baseline of accepting our bodies as they are and letting them sort of do their thing so that we can incorporate these practices to respect our bodies without it turning back into that obsession again, where we're just trying to control our bodies. And I mean, this is really out of loving on our bodies. And I think there's a kind of a misconception on like loving our bodies versus loving on our bodies. Ultimately, it would be great if we all loved our bodies head to toe. But the reality is that we might not love every part of our bodies, and that's okay. That's normal. Back to society and what society tells us our bodies should look like, even though we know that we're all different. But we can still love on our bodies and respect our bodies right in the here and now where they are without trying to change them, by accepting that it's just our job to care for them. I hope that kind of
that's so good. Yeah, there's just so many, I feel like so many little nuggets. I mean, everything you're saying is good, but I love the self-care over self-control and loving on our bodies. Which I feel like that is hard for a lot of moms, especially because our bodies go through so many changes through pregnancy and getting older and having kids. And so I love that because, I especially, like you said, with society and comparing ourselves to all the beautiful people in the world, there are going to be parts of our body that we don't love or necessarily appreciate too much. But I really like the self-care and the loving on ourselves. I also like what you said about our body will align with basically like how we're treating it. So just so much great information. I really loved everything that you've shared so far. So if you could give just like a couple of tips to someone who is new to all of this, what would it be, or what would they be?
I think the best place, to start is just by kind of taking stock of your relationship with food. Do you feel like you have a positive relationship with food? And if not, how can you maybe start to incrementally release some of that control that you might want to put around food? And just slowly start the process of allowing your body to be the guide and start to tune in to your body. And when I say tuning in, just tuning into simple things like, is my body hungry? Is my body tired? Is my body starting to get full? All of these things that many of us are going through life just not even thinking about at all, especially if we've come from a place of feeling like we need to live by a certain strategy of, portions or macros or counting or track in one way or another. Know that your body is your best guide. And how can you slowly just start to tune in? And the more you start to tune in, the more you can start to respond. And the more we respond to our bodies, the more we start to trust our bodies. And I was talking about this on Instagram yesterday. We kind of build up this trust bank. And even if we have days where we feel like we are totally out of alignment with our body, like we are just not on the same wavelength, it's okay. Because every time you add a new deposit to that trust bank, you can pull from it and you can go, okay, I can still trust my body. Even if yesterday felt a bit weird, I can still trust my body. And the more you learn to trust your body, the more you can start to make those choices that serve you. And then you can start to add in new practices that you're like, okay, maybe maybe I want to start trying to eat some more kale, or maybe I've never tried kale before and I've heard it's good. And if you hate kale, that's cool. You don't ever have to eat kale. We like kale in our house, but that's just us.
Yeah.
So you can try to incorporate these new things, but it has to come from that place of trusting your body. So evaluate your relationship with food. How is your relationship with food? If it's been a little bit rocky, how can maybe you start incrementally releasing some of that control and start recognizing some of those little cues that your body has already given you, so you can start to build up that trust. And when you do, then you can start to make those choices from a place of self-care over self-control.
Oh my gosh, so good. I love that so much. That makes it so doable, but it's just so powerful. Like those little things will just lead to great habits and being able to listen to your body. So thanks so much for everything you shared today. And again, we can find you on Instagram, and your website is Healthy Mama Kris, Kris. And we'll link to all those things. And then what was the name of your podcast again?
The Healthy Balanced Mama podcast.
Okay, awesome. So we'll link to that too. But thanks so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. It's such great information.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was so fun to chat with you.